All right, so I'm gonna try and look at the camera the entire time because sometimes I tend to look away. It is a bit weird looking at the camera, to be honest. But I wanted to speak about something that I think makes a bit of sense, being that a criticism from AMD fans and like a lot of people online, reviewers especially mainstream reviewers, is that Intel's chips run too warm. And the funny thing is, that combined with this whole consensus about apparently DDR5's instability and stuff, I think there's a remedy. So the truth is that Intel lately have been pushing out so much hardware and have been pushing their platforms to such exceptional limits. I don't know if it's to keep with AMD. I don't think it is because, to be honest, they could have dropped their clock speeds and still done really well. As per my other video, the clock scaling on Intel isn't like exceptionally crazy. You do get some frames, enough to where you notice, but like if they had dropped the core clock values on the i7 and the i9 by one. So right now on the i9, it's like 5.4 all core. If you look at the spec page, and if you look at the i7, it's 5.3. The i5 is 5.1. The i5 is actually really good. So 5.1 isn't even accurate. I think that's kind of bogus. The i7 silicon, because it's a pretty much a downband i9, it is kind of like on most i7s, well, not most, but like, well, yeah, most will run slower than the i9 counterparts at the same voltage. So in general, the i7 samples you're getting aren't going to be as good as i9 samples. There are some i7 samples that actually clock better than i9s. It's not impossible. Like SP96 chips versus like a SP90 i9, which can happen. Absolute calamity, but can happen. Like basically, Intel could have done a 5.3 i9. They could have done a 5.2 all-core i7, a 5.1 or 5.2, probably 5.1, because they could have 5.1, 5.2, 5.2. So, so one clock step each skew. If they did that, dude, the i9 silicon on average is so freaking good that at 5.3 all core, bro, we're talking like what, like 1.05 VR V out, like DiSense voltage, right? Like literally like 1.05. That's it. That's all you need to run R23 at 5.3 all core, dude. Like easily 1.05 on really good samples, maybe even 1 volt on some really good samples. On pretty good samples like 1.05 for 5.3, and then for like decent-ish samples, it would need about 1.1 on VR V out or DiSense to run R23 or like run any AVX stress test. AVX is a problem not because of the fact that it's a high load, but actually because AVX is so heavy and it pushes so much amps that the heat climbs and then it makes that clock step unstable. The heat due to the current is actually what makes AVX so difficult. It's not necessarily the instruction set itself. The problem is that when you increase current and as such heat, you increase thermal resistance, meaning that the same voltage that would have worked previously is now compromised. But that's not a linear process, so it depends where the temp goes. So what that means is you could potentially see if the i9 was actually a 5.3 gigahertz pot, or peak core ratio, so like at stock, and their engineers took time to actually tune the AC/DC LL properly, the internal SVID properly on chips, and like the microcurrent and stuff, dude, these chips could have been running. I'm talking like on the absolute most dog water i9s, like 1.1 VR V out, 1.1 DiSense, all core, and like at the worst, on the worst chips, like the absolute worst dog water chips, on the best chips, 1 volt. So, and at that kind of voltage, bro, dude, you're talking like, if you have a proper, and spec out, you need a 360 at bare minimum. And they should have said specifically bare minimum for the i7 and i9 360, with the intention of kind of conveying that bare minimum 360 means you need a good 360 and likely to max out the fan speed and have it tested in a good ambient environment. If you're gonna run the i7 or i9, you can use a 360 cool these chips, but you have to do it in good ambience with max airflow, and like good thermal paste and everything. Good thermal paste, good mounting pressure, good contact, like a good mount, good airflows are very important. Like the ambient temp is very important to make sure, and also just to make sure that the air is getting through. Like you can't have obstructions, like a terrible front panel, whatever. A 360mm is the absolute bare minimum for the i7 and i9, unless you're in like Siberia. If you're in Siberia and your ambients are like -15, then yeah, dude, use a freaking Noctua, bro. It doesn't matter. Like if you're living in Siberia, dude, like use whatever you want. Like whatever. Like -15 outside, bro. Like it's all calm. Like use a 120 AIO, bro. Like you're surely fine. Okay, I'm joking. A 120 would start to struggle because there it's like the heat transfer capabilities. But yeah, whatever. Like a 240 on an i9 with like -15, -20 ambience. I mean, you'll probably be okay. Like I'm not gonna lie, you'll probably be kind of okay. Because yeah, we're out here struggling, dude. Like testing in like 15, 20C ambience, bro. Like what is this, dude? This is a joke. Like imagine I was at -20, bro. Like are you kidding me, dude? Like you could put in some work. You could really get some crazy numbers. But actually, Intel's got another problem, and that is that regardless of temps, if your current draw is too high and load voltage is too high, you're going to degrade regardless. So if you're at like 300 amps at like 1.35 load volts, it doesn't matter what your cooling is like you're degrading, dude. Like if you're like ADC, looking at it like, oh, it's ADC, it's still running pretty chilled. Like, I mean, even though I'm at like 300 amps, like 1.3, it's still pretty cold. Like I'm at like, 380 watts, but it's still running cold, so I should be good. No, you're not good. No, that's just degrading, dude. Like 100%. Depending duration, obviously, but yeah, so many guys have screwed up just by this point. Like I mean, the data's out there. You could pretty much guess, if you're gonna degrade or not. Let me open this damn door, dude. It's so fucking warm, my house, bro. Holy shit, dude. Like, I'm sick of this, bro. Like, this is crazy. Yeah, so... Oh, damn, so warm, dude. Anyway, so, basically, I don't know what the hell they were thinking, dude. I don't know what they were thinking. Intel, if you're watching this video, you're not watching this video, but if someone is, because I get like 100 views in some videos, please link this video around. Try and get it to like 1,000 views, because it's very important that Intel look me in the eyes and understand that what you did not make sense, okay? You could have sold us 5.3 gigahertz i9s that run at literally like ADC in R23, because they would have been, down at like I said, like 1.1 internal voltage, like, VRV out, dye sense, or internal SVID, 1.1 would have done 5.3 just fine on i9's caliber of silicon. More than likely, from my testing and seeing other people's stuff online, 5.3 on an i9, that kind of silicon rating would be pretty okay at like a low voltage, like 1.1, for example. The problem really becomes like just 5.4 starts requiring at least like 1.15 to 1.2 dye sense on samples to run AVX loads. And then once you get like 5.5 all-core and like above, that's chalked, dude. But the time you're doing 5.5 all-core, you're looking at between 1.15 on the, maybe 1.1 on like the absolute best samples. Maybe like an SP120 would do like 5.5 all-core at like 1.1 volts. Obviously, that depends on the cooling. If your cooling's lower, if your ambient's really low, like, 0C, -5C, -10C, yeah, then of course you can come back to me like, oh, dude, I don't require that much. I can do like 50 less. Okay, of course, because, if you're running really cold, like colder than 90% of users, then yeah, you're going to be at like, obscenely low voltage requirements because your internal resistance is just much lower. But let's just assume that average ambient, that's reasonable for testing these chips in strenuous loads, 20C room temp, like get a thermometer type shit. So thermometer room temp, 20C accurate. Okay, I would say that most people will end up at around like 1.1 to 1.2, depending on sampling, for 5.4 all-core and AVX. That's my guess right now. Now, if that was 5.3, now you can look at like 1 volt to 1.1 volt. And yeah, it sounds like why we're using 1 volt? Because the chip's so damn warm, dude. It's a 24 core part with 8 P cores and like 16 E cores. The 16 E cores draw a ton of current extra. The 8 P cores are incredibly power hungry and run really quick and really warm. So, we would have done really well to have like chips that were running at 1 to 1.1 volt under heavy load. And that sounds crazy, but we really would have done well, dude. Like, it would have been better, because at those kinds of voltages, dude, at a stock vid, I mean, it's 5.3 and it's disappointing. It's like, oh, it's it's not even. I mean, the KS, right, the 1200 KS, that had a rated all core of like 5.2 for, heavy AVX and stuff like that. And for the most part, most chips actually ran that pretty easily. A lot of people were running 5.4 to 5.5 on their KSs at like, usable voltages. I think the i7 at 5.2 would have been a calm part, dude. I mean, that would have required like what? I mean, like I said, like i7 5.2, like 1.05, 1.1 maybe on like some really bad samples. I mean, some people with these insane i7s would have been like 0.95 like die cents. I mean, you can't do that, because I mean, I think the undervolt happens like, or undervolt protection happens like 0.7. I think the minimum voltage on Raptor Lake is like 0.7. I think it is. It might be lower. I don't know. I think it's 0.7. I mean, they probably lower that to like 0.6 or whatever, but whatever. Some dudes out there would have been at 0.95, depending on ambience, like 0.95 volts to run 5.2 on the i7. On some really good samples, mind you, I'm not saying every chip, I'm saying like on some insane samples. I mean, you could probably go now yourself and like have fun, and I bet you could probably do 5.0 at like 1 volt, 0.95 volts, because these chips do scale well. But Intel, dude, what the hell were you thinking? It was stupid. Like, why on earth would you max out the clocks? The performance is like, dude, it's infinitesimal, bro. It's crazy small. It's like, bro, it's so tiny, and it compromises the power draw so much, dude, that literally like reviewers are saying this stuff is running warm, and AMD fanboys are out here saying they were running at like 100C, and I'm like, dude, you're an idiot, dude. Come on, you don't know what you're talking about. But anyway, like, I mean, and speaking of that, dude, AMD's got like their own 95C algorithm, so like WAMD, I guess, I don't know. But Raptor Lake doesn't make sense, dude. I don't understand it, bro. I don't understand, like, why the hell did they do this? And plus, next problem is the microcode is freaking broken, because you can't do, like, if you do a manual VCore or VRM adjustment, whether that be offset even, if you do offset, the problem is you can't talk to the internal load line. Like, if you set like a negative 0.05 volts, so like 50 millivolt offset, you'd expect to be running 50 lower. Well, in my testing on my friend's 690 carbon, my own dock, a Hero I had, on every single board, negative offset does not work. It does nothing. The only way to get the chip to undervolt is if you own an ASUS board and you set the SVID behavior. So if you do best case scenario, or like trained, if you have a really cursed chip and you have to do trained, God bless you, but like, if your chip sucks and you have to do trained, whatever, trained in best case scenario is still way better than stock, dude. Like 100 millivolts at least, dude. Like best case might be like a solid, like, dude, best case might actually be like 200 millivolts lower, and trained is like 100 plus at least. And dude, those millivolts, like, they come in handy so much, and your chip never needs to run the normal one. Dude, why on earth do these chips run at like 1.3 volts and die cents in R23 at stock? Like, why? I don't get it. Why? What's the point? Like, you're trying to compensate for some dude living in like Saudi Arabia and like the 40s desert. Well, let me tell you something. The guys in those countries that own these chips, they have ACs. Like, I promise you. My mom is in the UAE and she's got an AC. I promise you. Dude, if you never worry about that Intel. Trust me. Like, no one is going to run these chips in AVX workloads at 40C ambience. I can guarantee that, dude. Like, anyone living in environments like that in the Middle East, they don't not own ACs. Like, they have ACs. That's not a concern. Like, you don't have to overvolt these chips. The stock SVID makes no sense at all. Like, absolutely no sense. It's so bad, dude. It's so freaking bad. And if they did this, that I'm going to suggest now at the end of the video is, Intel, you need to start rolling out a enthusiast early release program. That goes with MSI and ASUS and Gigabyte and ASRock and EVJ. Intel, you guys, if you're going to keep on innovating like this, which is good, but like, if you're going to keep on innovating, either you're going to have to do this, test your stuff properly and think it through, or just do an early release thing and then have us tell you, hey, this thing is like 1% faster, but it's running at like 100 millivolts more, and it's overheating now because of this. Like, we would tell you that the stock vids did not make sense. All that would happen is, if you set a 5.3 stock vid for the i9, and it was spec to run at 1.1 die cents in AVX for like the worst chips example, All that would mean is if someone landed with a good chip, right, and they had like a Mora 420 and like direct die or whatever, all that would happen is that dude living in Russia at negative 20C with direct die, 2 Moras and liquid metal on his actual like bare die. If this guy had like SP120, all that would happen is he would be like, 5.3. This is like really low. It's like, what could I do with this thing? Let's try 5.9 at like 1.2 volts. And they would work because he's running at like 50C, at load. I don't know, but like, you get what I'm saying? Like, all that would happen if you guys had compensated for the fact that chips run way too high current draw and the thermal resistance climbs really quickly. And I mean, like, so, honestly, it's weird because even if the chips could if they could do like 5.5 all core and like a certain the i9 had a 5.5 all core before they updated it before launch. If it could do that, the problem is that most people can't cool the voltage anyway. So what happens is you thermal throttle. So what the hell? What's the point? Like, think about this logically, right? If the stock VID is high to compensate for whatever, if you can't cool it regardless, all that's going to happen is you'll thermal throttle and you won't blue screen. Intel, like, the very easy solution, and I'm speaking to you guys like very confused because you guys are high level engineers employing 17-year-old girls that have passed Harvard and MIT fucking degrees and shit, dude. The most ridiculous stuff I've ever heard in my life. People who work for Intel are like literal, like gigantic mango brains. Like, bro, people at Intel literally have brains the size of like large mangoes, bro. Like, these giant brains. Like, fucking 170 IQ individuals. How on earth did they manage to screw this up? Like, come on, guys. Like, there's no way you guys don't realize what I'm saying is correct. Like, you know what I'm saying is true. Like, even if the chips needed, like, okay, what's the point? You can't cool it regardless. Like, if you don't own, like, a Mora. So what's the... And, like, who owns a Mora? Besides, like, like, 100 people. Like, most people don't have space for Mora. Like, a Mora is pretty big, dude. Like, you need a pretty big, like, area to have a Mora anyway. And most people aren't building custom roofs. And a Mora is damn expensive, but I think it's like 6 grand. It's African money. Like, well, not even, like, if you take away the important stuff, like, in euro, it's like 5,000 to 6,000 rand already in euro. Like, and that's not even including shipping and imports. So, like, like, it's barely affordable by most people. It's not practical. And like 99% of your customers are not going to buy one. So why on earth are we speccing the i9 to run at like 1.3 die cents in AVX loads at the stock VID? Like, what's the point? Like, what are we doing, guys? What are we doing? Like, why? I just don't get it, dude. Literally send us this stuff early. Like, literally have like an insider program where you can like send a message in and like elaborate on who you are and what your skills are, and like say, okay, I wanna buy one early, I wanna beta test it, like let me beta test it. And then you make these people pay, and then they get their stuff early and they can tell you, hey, so and so is happening, this is happening. You can tell the board vendor, hey, the termination values are broken, the trading is horrible for this particular memory IC, whatever. If you gave us 690 and 790 boards early, if you gave us Raptor Lake early, we could have told you all this stuff. Like, oh, it's this and this is happening, do this, change this, think about this, whatever. And just had a beta testing program, would have fixed everything. So anyway, yeah, that's our rant. And I am right, so yeah, cheers.